Back in March, at an escapers convergence in Moab, Utah, I got the chance to interview one of my many solo female RVing friends. Thank you, Hannah, for graciously agreeing to an interview. Well, Hannah may not be the best bowler. She's got some pretty mad skills with the hula hoop. And she's invited us in today to talk about life on the road.
Welcome to my abode. The Hungry Nomad.
The Hungry Nomad.
No, it really is the Curly Nomad. Don't listen to her.
Right.
And I'd like you to meet Hannah.
Hi.
She's the Curly Nomad. Hannah is here today. We're going to ask her some questions about being a solo female RVer. So I guess, Hannah, let's start by having you introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your background, like what got you into RVing. So we can learn a little bit more about you.
Okay, I'm Hannah. I'm 27 years old. I'll be 28 in like 2 weeks. I got into RVing because I quit my job and started my own thing online. And I was living in LA paying expensive rent. It was like $2,000 a month.
Wow.
And once I realized that I didn't have to be there anymore, I decided that I would travel instead, since I can work online. So, you know, I considered a few options, but it happened pretty quickly that I decided to move into an RV because I can take my dog, who's at my feet right now, and not have to have her be stressed out and, you know, bring her home with us. So within about 2 weeks of thinking about moving into an RV, I had an RV purchased.
Wow, that's fast.
Yeah.
So how long have you been on the road?
I've been on the road since July 1st, 2016, so almost 2 years.
Wow, two whole years. Can you talk a little bit about your travel style, where you've been, where you want to go? Like, how do you decide where you go?
My travel style is super loose. It all has to do with what is near me that is convenient to get to and has internet. So the big thing is I don't really go places without internet. I have an app that I check beforehand because if I can't have internet, then I can't work.
What app is that?
It is the Coverage app.
All right.
Coverage. And I think it's by Technomadia. And so yeah, I'll check and see what places within about an hour or two of me look good in terms of boondocking, because I'm 99% off grid most of the time. And then I will see which of those looks most appealing, and then I'll check the internet coverage, and if everything is good to go, then I'll do that. So it's like an hour or 2 hour drive every week or two. I don't like to travel too fast. This year I've been traveling really fast because we've had 2 escapers convergences, and in between that I met my boyfriend in Austin, Texas for vacation. So that was like California, Texas, Utah in a really short period of time. Yeah, a lot of driving, especially when you're working and running a business during the same time.
Yeah, it's busy. You don't travel completely alone.
No, I don't.
Who is this?
This is Trixie. This is my faithful companion and co-pilot, and she is a little over 8 years old now. And she's very protective of me and the RV, so I don't know if I would RV without her. She's just a really good travel buddy. And blanket warmer, bed warmer.
Fantastic. And so you love traveling with a dog?
Oh yeah, I don't think I would be able to travel as confidently without a dog, or as happily, because she's, you know, she keeps me active. She's a good warning signal if there's anything weird going outside. She's a good companion. All around good stuff to have a dog.
Fantastic. Now we're going to talk about rig choice. So let's talk about your rig.
Okay.
Why did you choose it? Or like, what is it first? Why did you choose it? And then we'll get into a little bit more about how has that been working out for you.
So my rig is a 91 Class C 27-foot Fleetwood Jamboree Rally. If that can possibly have more words. I chose it because, well, there were a few reasons. One is I didn't have a tow vehicle to tow like a trailer or a fifth wheel with, and I didn't want to make that investment because I wasn't sure how long I was going to RV for. So I knew that I needed to do some sort of motorhome. I considered Class A's and Class C's. I kind of knew I didn't want to do a Class B because for full timing I did not want to do anything like a van. So the Class C made a lot of sense for me because it seemed like there were a lot of really cheap Class Cs, and I wanted my first rig to just be something that I could try out this lifestyle in and see how I liked it.
Since you went so quick, right?
Yeah, it was very quick. I mean, I researched really heavily during that time period though. I knew kind of what layout I wanted. I knew I wanted the rear bed, which I have. So I have my full-sized queen bed in here, like my real residential mattress. And I just wanted it to be something cheap but in good condition to see how I liked it. Because I committed to 1 year of this, and I figured this can last me for a year. So
here you are at 2.
Yeah. I don't think I'll get rid of it anytime soon just because it's been so good to me. I found my rig on motorhomefinds.com, but it was listed on eBay. So it was like an hour and a half away from me because I was living in LA, and I was able to actually go see it in person when a lot of other people weren't. It had 23,000 original miles on it, and it didn't appear to have any of the typical water damage issues that these kinds of rigs usually have. So it was like barely used, and it just looked ugly, and I've fixed a lot of that, so.
Yeah, no, it looks really nice in here.
There's still more to do, but I mean, ultimately I think it was the perfect starter rig.
That's great. And it looks like now you tow a vehicle. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I started off without a tow vehicle because I have a 2014 car that I didn't want to bring with me because that's, a nice car. And I knew that I would be off grid most of the time in crazy, dusty, dirty places like this. So I didn't want to bring that. I left it in LA for a bit with friends and then with my brother, and now it's in storage. So I went without a tow car until, I want to say like October of last year, so October 2017, so over a year. And I knew that I wanted a Geo Tracker or a Suzuki Samurai, so I have been keeping an eye out for a while. And then finally, while I was in Washington last year, I found the perfect one that was already towed behind an RV, it already had the tow bar and everything, so I didn't have to figure anything out. I could just hook it up and go. And that's life-changing because this thing gets 9 miles a gallon and it's not easy to take to the grocery store.
Right. No, that's fantastic that you found like a little...
Yeah, and I can do things like go on hikes now easier too because this thing can't go to a lot of the trailheads. And I actually once in Utah, a bunch of guys had to like pick up the cars and move them out of my way because I got blocked into a trailhead that I was at. So it's much better to have the tow car now.
Yeah. Do you have any tips for anyone who is trying to choose a rig for themselves? Like what?
Definitely.
Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would say you never stick with your first rig, so don't be super worried about getting the perfect rig the first time because you're not going to know exactly what you want until you've already lived in one or traveled in one a lot. Like I'm happy with this one for now because I kind of feel like it's been so good to me that if I traded up or got a newer one, what if that one has more problems than this? Because this one has just been phenomenally good for someone who bought an RV without knowing anything. So I would say just don't be worried about getting the perfect rig the first time. Know your budget and don't be scared of getting an older RV as long as you are willing to do some DIYs on it to make it a little bit nicer on the inside.
Because you've learned a lot of stuff like working on this, right? Like...
Yeah. I mean, some of my histories, I did go to interior design school for a little bit, but I did drop out. So I'm very into like the design stuff. I'm not a professional, obviously, didn't make it through school. But I'm very into that. So this has not only been, just to make it cozier for myself, but it's been a lot of fun too, trying to make it look nicer. Just make sure that you're getting a rig in good condition. It doesn't matter if it's ugly, because a lot of the newer rigs, like the main difference is, there's some functionality differences, but the main thing you'll notice is just finishes. And you can change all of the finishes for a lot cheaper than you can buy a brand new rig. And brand new rigs have problems too.
Yes, they do.
So you're going to have problems anyways. So if you're just starting out and you're not sure, just get a used one and make it fancy.
Awesome.
Also, the one really great thing that I did was I paid a mechanic to come with me and look at the RV before I actually put a bid on the auction. So the mechanic looked it over and I knew that it was mechanically sound before I put any money into it. I knew that it had certain things done that were important for the maintenance up to that point, and so I was confident in making that bid. I would not recommend buying a used RV this old without doing that because you just have no idea what you're in for if you don't bring someone who knows a little bit more than you. It's worth the investment.
Great tip. talk about the big issue that everyone wants to know about. It's like solo RVing is safety.
So
oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Go for it. No, you guys
I have a lot to say about this.
Yeah, go for it.
So this is the number one thing that people ask me. Actually, I wouldn't say it's the number one, but it's like one of the top 3 things that people ask me when they learn that I live in an RV alone with just my dog. It's really, safety is a non-issue. As long as you are being intelligent and having common sense, lock your doors, don't like flaunt that you're a solo woman, don't engage with people that make you feel uncomfortable. Trixie is a big protector for me. As you can see, she's already about to freak out about someone outside. So she keeps me feeling safe, because if anything weird is happening outside, whether it's an animal or a person, I know. And I trust her ears more than mine. She's like shaking right now. So I trust her ears more than mine. So I would recommend having a dog as a solo RVer, or whatever your weapon of choice is, as long as you're following the laws. But I don't really have any weapons. I have pepper spray in case I need it, or bear spray. I've never felt like I needed to use it. I felt much more unsafe in the middle of LA in daylight. Like walking down Hollywood Boulevard alone as just me was never a fun situation unless I had a guy right there with me. For some reason, people respect your presence more if you have a guy standing right there, because you're, claimed in a way. But when you're out in the boonies like this, you might come across a crazy person, but it's a greater likelihood that it's just going to be people that have the same mindset as you already. Like there's tons of people that I've met on the road, and there's only been a couple that have been weird, or a couple people that have made me feel uncomfortable, and it's just way less of a concern than people could ever imagine.
And do you have any recommendations for when you find yourself in one of those situations where, you're kind of nervous about something, or something got you concerned?
Yeah, I would say, first of all, just make sure that someone always knows where you're at. I used to have an iPhone, so I would share my location with my mom and a few other family members and my boyfriend, just in case something happened, whether someone's doing something to me or whether I have injured myself somehow. Now that I have an Android, I use the app Life 360, which shows your travel history in addition to your current location, and you can check in. There's also the safety function, or the emergency function, on both Androids and iPhones now, where you can click the power button 3 times and it'll send an SOS signal to wherever you are. Those are the main things, because if something happens to you, someone needs to know where you are. And then if you're actively in a situation where something bad is happening, or a stranger knocks on your door, don't open your door. You have no reason to open your door unless it's the police or something. Like, don't put yourself in a situation where you feel unsafe. Again, like I said before, don't flaunt that you're a solo woman. I kind of can't help it because I have a pink bike on the back of my rig, and this tiny yellow tracker, so I'm very noticeable, which I kind of regret, but again, nothing bad has come from it. The other good thing is I have a Class C, so if something is happening, if it is hitting the fan, you can bleep that out if you need to, I can put the keys in and hop in and drive away. And that was another reason that I chose to do a Class C, because if I'm ever in danger, which I have been pushed by a bear before, I can just hop in the seat and drive away if needed. And even if my car isn't attached, if it's that serious, I can come back.
Yeah. Do you ever find yourself lonely? So let's talk about community.
Yeah, I would say in the past there were times where I would get really lonely and a little bit homesick, not to the degree that I wanted to move back home, which is Washington State and super gloomy and I really can't deal with. But yeah, you definitely get lonely in terms of like, oh, I haven't seen or spoken to another person in 3 days, or I don't know anyone around here. For me, sometimes that's good because I do still have to work a lot, and mixing work with adventure takes a lot of time, so there's not always a lot of time to visit in the first place. But I do have to say, ever since I joined the Escapers, it has been totally different. Between Instagram and the Escapers, there is a shocking huge community out there online and in person of RVers who are all of the same mindset as you, because they're already doing this. And it takes a certain mindset to do something like this. So there's people like this everywhere that you can meet if you really want to. I have more real friends now that I'm on the road than I did when I lived in LA, I think. And that's kind of hard to gauge. It may just be because I'm in the situation right now, but I really think even when I wasn't familiar with people, when there were people around, there's been times where I've met strangers who have come to my aid in some way, shape, or form. And RVers are just there to help each other out. It's like a built-in community by default because we know that life on the road is not always easy.
Any words of advice for someone who might be interested in this lifestyle? Trying to decide if it's for them or not.
There's a lot of different facets as to whether or not you should do it. My philosophy and kind of my religion on the road is YOLO. You only live once. And I know that's really typical, but it's so true. You need to take advantage of the life that you have right now. And if you end up jumping into it and deciding that you don't like it, you're not stuck here. You can go do something else. You can quit anytime you want. You can do this for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, and decide that you love it and then jump in further, or decide that you hate it and go back home and go back into your life. And also, when you do get started in this life, you don't have to jump in all the way like I did. Like, I had nothing to go back home to. I got rid of my apartment. You don't have to do that. But especially if you're at the point where you don't already have kids and a mortgage and you're not tied to your job, I say do it at least once, because you have time and there's so much beauty to see, especially here in the US. I have such a greater appreciation for our country now that I RV. I had no idea how much beautiful stuff we had to see, and now I feel like a whole lifetime is still not even enough to see it all. So if you're considering it, I say just do it, even if it's temporary. It's not permanent. It's not a tattoo. You can always get rid of your RV if you hate it.
That's fantastic. Yay!
Yay.
If you were to do this all over again, what would you do differently?
I think starting out, I would do the exact same thing. I would pick the exact same rig, but there are some things that are preferable if you have the option. If you're getting a motorhome like this, I say definitely get a tow rig ASAP. It's completely life-changing. It's going to make everything so much easier, from going to the grocery store to adventuring.
Oh, a tow vehicle.
A tow vehicle. Yeah. What did I call it?
A tow rig.
Oh, sorry. Yeah,
okay.
Tow vehicle, tow car. My towed. I mean, there's a lot that I could do differently, or I could have done differently. I think I made the right choices to start. But I mean, there are some nicer rigs that I've looked at that would be really nice, like a Winnebago View. Those are really nice. I do think it'd be cool to have the space of a fifth wheel, but ultimately I'm happy with what I did so far.
Awesome.
I thought I had more to say about that. Sorry, that was kind of a lame question. Oh, I would have fixed it before moving into it.
So what would you have fixed before you moved in?
So the other thing that I would have done differently, and I would have fixed before I moved in, is I would have had everything remodeled before I moved in, because it is extremely difficult to paint anything when you're living in a 270 square foot space with a dog, especially, and trying to work and having to go outside and bring in dirt and not get dirt in the paint. So get everything painted and like up to date as much as you can before you move in, if possible at all.
How do you keep in touch with your family and your friends? How often do you go home? That kind of thing. Like how do you travel? Do you travel any differently?
I don't think that I really travel any differently, except that my parents do have property up in the Pacific Northwest in Washington State that is kind of a nice home base to go home to if I have work that I need to do on the RV, or just to see them in the summertime. So far I've had the rig for 2 summers, and I've gone back to Washington State both summers, but that's actually more frequently than I used to go home when I was living in LA, when I would only go home for Christmas sometimes, and pretty much never in the summers because I had a full-time job. So I actually see my family and friends more often.
That's good.
Almost always in the summer, and it's a nice home base. All of my friends from high school are up there. My best friend is up there, and I was able to go to her wedding and see her baby and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
So it's not very different for me. It might be different for others, but I feel like RVing gives you the freedom to go home more often if you want. I definitely see my family a lot more now.
So if people want to follow you, how can they do that?
So my travel website that I never ever update is curlyexplorers.com, just in case anything ever happens to my Instagram. But my Instagram, which is where I post the most, is the.curly.nomad. And a lot of people ask what I do for a living online. So if you keep up with those 2 accounts, you'll be able to see whatever information I'm telling people about either, what the best adventures are, what my advice is for making a living online, how to RV, anything like that, or just, seeing what food I'm eating.
You see a lot of food that you're eating.
Yes.
Filming her dinner.
Are you vlogging me vlogging?
I might be filming you. Yeah.
I also do have a YouTube. If you want to look it up, I think it's Curly Explores, Curly Nomad TV, something like that. But as long as you go to the website and Instagram, you'll find everything that you need to know from
Okay,
there.
and we'll link it at the bottom of this video here. I say we, I mean me.
We will link it.
Thank you very much, Hanna, for your time today and talk to us about solo female RVing.
Of course. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah.
Any other questions, just ask. Do you want some rum? I've got some rum.